The Mongol Empire was one of the largest contiguous land empires in history, spanning vast swaths of Eurasia during the 13th and 14th centuries. Structured around a hierarchical system, power emanated from the Great Khan, who ruled supreme over a web of subordinate khans and princes governing specific territories. Their military prowess, marked by mobility and discipline, played a pivotal role in the empire's expansion. Initially focused on unifying the Mongol tribes of the steppes, Genghis Khan, the empire's founder, set the stage for future conquests. By the 1220s, Mongol hordes controlled much of Central Asia and parts of the Middle East, including Persia. Although Genghis Khan himself didn't venture into Europe, his successors, notably Batu Khan, spearheaded campaigns that reached the continent's doorstep by 1241. Mongol forces clashed with the Kievan Rus and inflicted heavy defeats on Polish, Hungarian, and Bulgarian armies, and nearly fought with the forces of Novgorod. The pivotal Battle of Mohi in Hungary further solidified Mongol dominance in the region. They used tactics similar to their previous campaigns, launching small squadrons to attack isolated settlements and spread fear of the horde's advance. The town of Wiener Neustadt and other areas in the Holy Roman Empire were pillaged, but the city of Prague managed to repel the Mongol squadron under the leadership of King Wenceslas I. Due to effective European defenses, unfavorable and swampy terrain unfit for horses, and the Mongols' own strategic decisions, they faced challenges and setbacks in fully realizing their conquests in Europe. Most notably, the great Khan Ögedei died during a drunken hunting trip in Mongolia, leading to the subsequent recall of Batu Khan and the other Khans to attend his funeral. With this retreat, the existing factors that repelled the Mongols' advance, and the splitting of the Mongol Empire starting in the 1260s and culminating in the total division of the empire by 1294, Western Europe never saw the wrath of the descendants of Genghis Khan. But what if this had changed? What if, in an alternate timeline, Ögedei Khan hadn't perished in 1241 and the Mongols broke through Prague and expanded into Western Europe? After defeating European forces in Liegnitz in modern-day Poland, the Mongols pillaged neighboring regions like Moravia. King Wenceslas I of Bohemia was busy gathering reinforcements to protect his kingdom from the Mongols. In order to fight a battle which was slowly becoming one of many fronts, Batu Khan divided his forces, with some attacking Bohemia and the rest attempting to finish off the Hungarians. Bohemia stood strong for now, as they received assistance from the rest of the Holy Roman Empire in defending their territories. But King Bela IV of Hungary now saw his nation in dire straits. Mongol general Subutai led the catastrophic Battle of Mohi, where the Hungarian armies suffered heavy losses, leading to their defeat. Following this success, Batu Khan and Subutai set their sights towards the Holy Roman Empire. As bitter winds swept across the outskirts of Prague, Batu Khan's horde leapt upon the city, their war cries piercing the cold night air. The thick mud that had hindered their advance in previous campaigns had now frozen over, providing a treacherous yet navigable path for their steeds. Inside and outside Prague, panic gripped the defenders as they struggled to muster their forces against the impending onslaught. Unlike the fortified strongholds of Fervár and Veszprém, two of the cities which had repelled the Mongols during their invasion of Hungary, Prague lacked the imposing fortresses and castles that thwarted previous Mongol assaults. The city's walls, though sturdy, were simply no match for the relentless fury of the Mongol warriors. The Mongols quickly closed in, but Prague's defenders unleashed a barrage of arrows and javelins, hoping to stave off the inevitable. The invaders, however, were undeterred, their onslaught bolstered by newly acquired Chinese fire arrows and other exotic weaponry imported from the far reaches of their empire. The fall of Prague by Christmas of 1241 sent shockwaves through the Holy Roman Empire, plunging the realm into disarray. As the Mongols pushed further west, their swift cavalry and disciplined tactics proved effective against the fragmented Western European feudal forces. The only limiting factor for the horde now would be geography. The formidable barrier of the Alps presented a significant obstacle to their advance. The Mongol horde would have to skirt northward, navigating through the conquered territories and former Polish and Holy Roman lands. Utilizing the flat plains of northern Europe to their advantage, the Mongols swept through the low-lying regions with relative ease. Their formidable cavalry and master of mobile warfare allowed them to rapidly conquer new territories, including Jutland in Denmark and several of the northern German states. In the spring of 1242, a Mongol army led by General Toghrul descended upon the wealthy Hanseatic city of Lübeck. The Mongols numbered around 20,000 warriors intent on plundering the city's riches, However, Lübeck was not defenseless. The city had mustered a sizable militia of around 15,000 well-trained soldiers, bolstered by stout walls and formidable towers. A battle ensued around the city, and Hanseatic reinforcements arrived by river. Despite their numerical superiority, the Mongols faced fierce resistance from the determined defenders. Seeing their losses mount and facing the prospect of prolonged siege warfare, the Mongols ultimately retreated, and Lübeck was spared. However, within weeks, the Mongols would turn their eyes to a different stronghold, laying siege to the bustling port city of Hamburg. With a larger force, the Mongols moved to capture the city's strategic location on the Elbe River. Hamburg, like Lübeck, was not without defenses. This time, though, reinforcements were cut off, and General Togrul and Batu Khan would see victory over Hamburg. Pope Gregory IX stood before a gathering of cardinals and clergy, his voice thundering with righteous indignation. In the wake of the fall of Hamburg, he declared the Mongols to be the embodiment of evil, harbingers of the Antichrist. The proclamation would send shockwaves throughout the Christian world. The southern armies of the Holy Roman Empire, the Papal States, and the Kingdom of Naples would begin to mobilize for war. In the Byzantine Empire, the Orthodox Church responded with equal fervor, as the Bulgarians called upon their Orthodox brethren for assistance against the Mongol onslaught from the northeast. The Serbs answered the call without hesitation, marshalling their forces to join the fray against Mongol invaders on their border with Hungary and in the east across the Carpathians. In northern Germany, Bremen would fall as the Mongols started to target more Hanseatic cities for their wealth. The Mongols had no interest in undermining the Holy Roman Empire politically. They were simply in it for the loot. Nonetheless, Batu Khan's forces had essentially crippled the Holy Roman State, slicing the arteries of its economy in the north. In the wake of the destruction, the northern kingdoms of Europe found themselves thrust into an equally precarious position. Their economic lifelines in the Holy Roman Empire had just been severed by the Mongols. As news of the atrocities spread across the region, a sense of urgency gripped the leaders of Norway and Sweden. The northern states understood that their economic interests were now inexorably tied to the advance of the pillaging horde. Once Vikings and pillagers themselves, now it was Scandinavia who fought alongside the rest of Christian Europe to regain control of Jutland and the German states. Despite pushback from their new enemies, Mongol raiders continued their advance. Batu Khan moved westward, encountering the German lowlands. The kingdoms of the Benelux were politically split between territories held by various feudal lords. The disunion of these territories, combined with their geographical vulnerability, allowed the Khan to infiltrate the region with relative ease. Only the city of Ghent would be spared the rampage of the horde, being the most significantly fortified city in the entire region. It wasn't over for Europe, however. The Khanate would face tougher resistance upon approaching France. France, during the Middle Ages, was characterized by the fragmentation of the Carolingian Empire and the expansion of the royal court of the House of Capet. This period saw struggles between the central monarchy and virtually independent principalities such as duchies and counties. France was a monarchy ruled by King Louis IX. He was a popular monarch who, in our timeline, led the Seventh Crusade of the Holy Land from 1248 to 1250. This military expedition was part of his efforts to strengthen Christianity's presence in the East. Louis IX's reign marked an age of splendor for the French monarchy. This splendor, however, would be suddenly interrupted by the introduction of the Mongol horde to the equation. Rather than focusing on the Crusades and the development of Gothic Christianity in France, Louis IX's reign would be one of destructive war with the Mongols. The French military was built on a hierarchy of knights, foot soldiers, and other medieval forces. Contemporary sources suggest that France was about 50,000 strong. These figures are based on recordings of the Saintonge War in France. In the early stages of the Mongol attack on France, it was very difficult to tell which fighting force would come out on top. The Mongols had the advantage in speed and numbers, but the French had the advantage in fortifications and defenses, as well as knowledge of the land and experience in Western Europe's climate and geography, and a retinue of allies that had just joined the fray against the Mongols. The horde themselves were exceptional horse archers, skilled in hit-and-run tactics. Their composite bows had excellent range and accuracy. The French, on the other hand, primarily relied on feudal knights, infantry, and crossbowmen. While experienced, these forces were more trained in the slower-paced European conflict style. The Mongols were masters of maneuverability and surprise attacks. They used feigned retreats to draw enemies into ambushes and execute coordinated attacks from multiple directions. This would be the greatest threat to French knights, who were heavily armored and effective in direct charges, but who would struggle against the Mongols' hit-and-run tactics. The introduction of a Celtic weapon by English traders, however, would turn the tide of battle. While the Mongol horde advanced further into northern France, encountering the formidable fortifications and organized resistance of the French forces, French craftsmen and engineers, under the king's orders and payroll, worked tirelessly to mass-produce powerful weapons capable of launching arrows with incredible force and accuracy over long distances. The Celtic longbow, with its superior range and penetrating power, would provide the French with a crucial advantage against the Mongols' swift cavalry. As the Mongols launched their next assault on a fortified French stronghold, they were met with a barrage raining down upon them from the ramparts. The French archers, positioned strategically along the walls, unleashed volleys of arrows that found their marks with deadly precision, piercing through Mongol armor and thinning their ranks. With their superior knowledge of the terrain and disciplined formations, the French infantry and cavalry finally gained the upper hand against the Mongol invaders. Days turned to weeks, and as the Mongols' losses mounted, it became increasingly clear that their momentum had been halted by the resolute defense of the French forces. Meanwhile, Mongol forces still engaged the Bulgarian Empire in Eastern Europe. Mongol progress was hindered, this time by the imposing barrier of the Carpathian Mountains, which restricted their movement and slowed their advance. The Mongol Empire, which now stretched across Eurasia from the Atlantic to the Pacific, was beginning to falter under its own weight. The Khan was already old and weary, as were his fighters, many of whom were completely disconnected from the capital of the empire they served. Over the next few years, French momentum gained, and the Mongols were pushed north to Flanders. With this pushback and the slowing of Mongol advances in the Bulgarian Empire, the horde would be forced to retreat or scatter. Mongol dominion over Europe was simply unsustainable, not because of the military forces that sought to expel them, but because of the sheer distance of Europe from the Mongol homeland. European powers exploited the disarray, pushing back the Mongols step by step. France, the Holy Roman Empire, Hungary, Bulgaria, Sweden, Poland, Novgorod, and even the English and Serbs would strangle back their corners of the European continent bit by bit. Unlikely alliances would certainly be forged to push back the Mongols, but the majority of fighting would be done by the individual kingdoms, pushing back the already scattered forces of the retreating horde by themselves. With each passing year, the Mongol Empire began to crumble under the weight of its own ambitions. The death of Ögedei Khan, the aging leader of the Mongol horde, further weakened their resolve. By 1260, the once mighty Mongol Empire had been forced to retreat beyond the Urals, its dreams of conquest shattered by the resilience of the European nations. Remnants of the horde remained scattered across the vast Eurasian landscape, but not even the Golden Horde would be able to rise to nearly the same might as the Mongol Empire in its golden age, the only Eurasian empire to ever stretch from the Atlantic to the Pacific. Thank you so much for watching. If you're new to the channel, welcome. We have new videos like this one every week, so be sure to subscribe and stay tuned. A special thanks to everyone who has donated to us on Patreon and through channel memberships on the main channel. Support from our patrons and donors helps make regular videos possible, and every donation goes a long way to keeping our channels going. If you can't donate anything, please consider subscribing on here and on our main channel and sharing this video to help out. Thanks again, and we'll see you in the next video. Mr. Z out.